Good morning, everyone. It is Sunday morning. It is July the 26th, 2020. It is currently 8:27 a.m. Central Time. Now, I'm coming to you live from Victory Baptist Church. I'm here inside the sanctuary. And at 10 a.m., I'll be teaching the Sunday school hour. Then at 11 a.m., the morning worship service. And then I'll be back tonight at 6 p.m. for the evening service. And then Wednesday at 7 p.m. for the Wednesday evening service. And we are obviously having church all just the exact normal way that we would. The only difference is because of COVID-19, we're not meeting in person, which a lot of churches are doing right now. A lot of churches are struggling with what to do. A lot of churches are struggling with how to do church, what to do, what should you do, what shouldn't you do, what should you cancel if you do have church, what precautions do you take? Make people wear a mask, don't make them wear a mask. Do you do social distancing? How do you spread it out? Do you increase the number of services where you can lessen the number of people in each service? Like everyone's trying to figure all of this out. And in the midst of pastors and churches trying to figure it out, obviously there's lots of debating and arguing about what the church should do and what the church shouldn't do. Should they close? Shouldn't they close? Lots of discussion. And I have said from the very beginning that we need to pay close attention to how this entire COVID-19 situation is going to impact the church. How is the church going to be changed by this? Remember when this all started, there were initial reports that 10% of churches will close their doors for good by the end of the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, those were dire predictions. Whether they turn out to be true or not, only time will tell. But there's been lots of dire predictions about how this will impact the church financially, how this will impact the church moving forward. Could this literally transform what the church looks like by the time we get to, July 2021 or by the beginning of 2022? Does the church in America, does the church around the world look radically different? Now, there's lots of speculation and there's lots of questions, but we are getting at least some indication we're getting an indication of certain actions and behaviors that may not be things that church or that pastors, I think even committed church members, this may be some things you don't want to hear, all right? And I think some of us kind of knew this was coming. I think others argued against it. There are those who report a different experience, but let me state it this way. I stated at the very beginning, and I'd have to go back and listen to my exact words, so I'm going to paraphrase a little bit. So if I state it incorrectly, I apologize. But I was trying to say something along these lines. When churches had to lock down and when churches decided to lock down, whatever the case may be, whether they were forced to do or chose to do, whatever the case may be, I said at the beginning, I think a lot of people would tune in. A lot of people would tune in because it would be different. It would be something unique. And they were like, church is online. Let's try this out. And a lot of people would tune in. But I did not think it would last. I think some people corresponded with me, and I think everyone had kind of a different idea. I think everyone agreed that it would not last, that we would see a major decrease in the amount of people tuning in. It may take 2 weeks. It may take 3 weeks. It may take 4 weeks. But over time, people would be like, you know what? No one's going to know if I'm there or not there. No one's paying any attention. No one cares if I'm there or not there. I mean, I'm sitting at home, and because you're sitting at home, people will be like, well, I'll catch it later. I'll watch it later on demand. And so little over little, people's practice of tuning in while the church is live would start decreasing. People would be distracted by other things to do at home, things to watch on television, other things to listen to. And then that the uniqueness of it would wear off. And then they would just kind of start, forget this. And you would start seeing a decline in the number of people tuning in. Now, I can't say dogmatically because I haven't tried to dig into the numbers carefully. I think Sunday mornings we do okay. I'm a little concerned about maybe Sunday night or Wednesday night, those numbers possibly decreasing. And it's one of those things you're like, oh, I hope that's not happening. But it appears to be happening. All right. Listen to what I just heard on Christian radio as I was driving here to church. This aired just literally a few minutes ago. Listen to these statistics.
A new Barna poll reveals a disturbing statistic. Half of practicing Christian millennials are not viewing services online during the coronavirus quarantine. This is Truth Itself. A profile of groups of online churchgoers reveals a strong generational pattern. When asked if they had attended church within the past 4 weeks, exactly half of practicing Christian millennials say they have not. The percentages of Gen X and Boomers who have stopped attending online services, 35 and 26% respectively, are lower than among their younger counterparts, but still show the impact of COVID-19 precautions and regulations on what used to be a regular practice. Barna's data does not include elders due to a low sample size, but the researchers say it's important to note that the elder and boomer groups combined make up over half of the practicing Christian population in the U.S. Though younger generations might be more accustomed to digital routines and innovations, their tenuous relationship with institutions seems to persist during the era of digital church. Barna says these trends highlight the importance of churches continuing to reach out to and disciple the next generation, especially those who are seemingly falling away during the pandemic. Meanwhile, a double-digit percentage of Gen X and Boomers say they've switched churches during this online church period. During these trying days, one of your biggest house...
Now, I want you to hear some of those statistics, okay? Over half of millennials, boom, they're not viewing church online. They've stopped. That's significant. Now, but they still said, I think, Gen X and Boomers, I think it was 26, 28%, and 36% respectively, that they have stopped watching and viewing church online. So if you got half of millennials, you got between 20 and 30% of the other generations stop watching, you've got a major decline in the number of people tuning into church. Now, listen, that is a fact. And trust me, pastors, elders, church staff, they know this. They're looking at those numbers. They're paying attention to how many people are tuning in. And I'm telling you, if those numbers are dropping at any significant rate, I think this will be one of the most motivating factors of whether of how churches are going to respond to COVID-19. It's not going to be based on advice from medical professionals. It's not going to be based off what the government says or doesn't say. It's going to be based off the fact that churches are going to panic, that they're going to lose members. Number one, they're going to lose members. Number two, they're going to lose money. And when they start losing members and losing money, then guess what? You're going to open and you're not going to listen to any other advice. And that's the wrong reason to be motivated to do so. You can't be motivated during a pandemic by anything other than medical considerations and what the medical professionals are saying. And then you've got to do your best to ensure that you are protecting life, preserving life, and showing love for others and love even for your enemies. That has to be a major motivating factor in what we do. But those numbers are not good. Now, I know some online churches are reporting that their attendance is increasing and that more people are actually attending things online than they were in person. Now, is that's possibly a good thing or a bad thing? You know, why are people not? That's probably a sign that people who are not members of your church are tuning in. And you can say whether that is a good thing or a bad thing. But according to these numbers, the number of people that are tuning in, it's dropping. And I think it will continue to drop the longer this situation continues. And that's not a good sign for the church. But there was another disturbing number there. Over half, or double-digit figures, I think is what they said, double-digit figures of Gen X and Boomers, now this is important, have switched churches during the pandemic. Now, oh boy, this is the kind of stuff that drives me crazy. In the middle of a pandemic, when pastors are already stressed out in what to do, how to do it, and no matter what their decision they're going to make, no matter what decision they're going to make, they're going to tick off somebody. In the middle of a pandemic, that's when people are like, peace out, see ya. We're going somewhere else. I know it's the middle of a pandemic. I know you're trying to figure out what to do. I know you're worried about, how many people may possibly leave. I know you may be worried about the giving. Sorry, we're gone. And that's the very mentality that is so prevalent in the church in so many different ways. People think it's about them. They never think about how that impacts anybody else. They don't care. So you've got double-digit numbers of people just like, well, we're gone. We're switching. We're just leaving your church to go to another church. And so guess what? Pastors know this is happening. And here's what's happening. People wake up and they're like, you know what? I've always thought about visiting that church or visiting that church. It's the middle of a pandemic. We're live streaming. I'll just jump over to their live stream. Oh, I like that one better. Well, that's where we're going to go to church. Now, I don't know if they're contacting their pastor to say that they're left. I don't know. Or they have left and the pastor doesn't know it yet. And then when church finally meets back in person, they're realizing they're missing a good portion of their congregation because they've all switched on them. Yeah, because once it's to online streaming, everyone's just going to choose what they want. Why should I listen to my church when I can listen to Grace Community Church, or I could listen to, you name the church, depending on your theological persuasion, your theological bent, you're going to just choose whatever sounds good. And this could possibly change the way church looks. I mean, I think the way churches look actually in person could be majorly transformed over the next 4 to 6 months. And I think when churches come back, there's going to be a lot of empty pews where there used to be people, or maybe there'll be a lot of new people there that didn't used to be there. I don't know how I view all of this. I know this: the last thing you want to do during a pandemic when your pastor and elders are trying to figure things out is abandon them then. Now, I got no problem that that at some point you're not happy with your church and you move on, because I think sometimes the best thing for people to do is move on than stay there and cause problems and difficulties. But man, that many people have switched church during a pandemic. It's hard for me to just go, wow, that's not the time to do it to do that to the pastor, to the congregation. Can you just wait a little? Can you just show some kind of support? But man, it's so about them. It's never about how it impacts the church. So here's just some thoughts from these statistics that we just heard. Here's some thoughts. Number one, there is no denying that things are changing in the church because of COVID-19. There is no question that the newness of church online only is wearing off. It's no longer that interesting. It's no longer, it's so new, it's so cool. That's wearing off. And people now are tuning out, or they're surfing, looking for other things to listen to. Right? They're trying new things because if I'm just sitting at home, I'm going to listen to what I want to listen to. I don't have to listen to my pastor. I can listen to whatever. And this is a fact. People are tuning out. People are tuning to other places, and this is going to impact churches. Churches are looking at those numbers. They're getting concerned. And trust me, this could have a profound impact on the giving. Now, that is a fact. Those things are happening. How to navigate that, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what churches can do. I know what some are doing. They're doing everything in their power to bring people to a physical location, drive-in services, or just open the door and say, we don't care what's going on with COVID-19. But here is my fear. So number one, clearly the newness has worn off and people are tuning out. That seems to be a fact, right? Now, there may be exceptions to that rule, but I think that's becoming the common rule. All right. So that's a fact. Number two, many churches are doing everything they can to bring people to the building. Drive-in services, open the doors. That is a fact. Many churches are going to do whatever they can. Number three, and here's the critical question: what's your motivating reason? Now, here's the thing with Christianity, and this is and this is true. And I know people get mad when I say these things, but this is a very true thing about Christianity. And it's a true thing about religion as well. Religion sometimes offers you the ability to cover your true motives and religious a religious robe, right? You've got your true motives, but you hide your motives behind religious words, behind doctrine, behind, all kinds of holier than thou, appearance. And what do I mean by that? Okay, here's the situation. If your real motivation for opening the church, if your real motivation for having a drive-in service, if it really is you're worried about losing people and you're worried about money, then just say that. Don't turn it into, well, we have to do this because we can't forsake the assembly and we have to follow God. And you make it sound so spiritual. And you hide it behind terms like, we don't want the government to take over the church. And you create this us versus them. And you're doing all of that simply because you need the people there and you don't want to lose the people and you don't want to lose the money. You know what your real motivations are. Again, I've stated it a number of times since I've been talking about this. The church in Louisiana, I wish I had the name and I wish I had the audio clip. CNN, all these news agencies were in the parking lot talking to the pastor about why are you having services during the midst of this? The states told you not to. And he said, look, we're like a business. If we don't have church services, we don't bring in any money. You know what? The guy's theology, I think, is completely whacked. I disagreed with a lot of his decisions he was making, but I loved the brutal honesty. If we don't have people here, we don't bring in any money. We don't bring in any money. We're going to have to start firing people, laying people off. We can't survive without money. Just say that. Don't sit there and go, this is about God, and this is about not bowing to the government, and this is about not forsaking the assembly, and just sound like we're so holier than thou. We're just wrapping ourselves in that holier than thou language to really hide the true motivations. If these statistics that we just heard are correct, online church attendance is dropping like crazy. And guess what happens when people aren't attending online? They're not giving. And guess what happens if they're not giving? The church is in trouble. And guess what? If you realize half of your people are not listening to you, you start worrying about who they're listening to. And then you start worrying about, well, wait a minute. When this is over, they're not going to be coming back. And then I'm going to lose 10% of my congregation, 20% of my congregation, 30% of my congregation, 40% of my congregation. Well, guess what? You don't want that. You don't want that. So then your motivations are something different than all the things that you claim that it are. That is the danger of all of this. And then the last thing I will say, that many people leaving their church during a pandemic. Man, look, I know. And listen, I firmly believe this. So it is best sometimes for people to leave a church. It really is, because all they're going to do is stay there and complain and cause trouble because I hate to say it. Rarely do people sit in church and demonstrate a respectful, submissive attitude. Once they become unhappy, they just cause trouble. That their unhappiness and their complaint spreads like cancer, and it will eat away at a church and can split it. Sometimes it's better for people just to leave. It really is. But man, if there's anything you can do, right? Here's what I would say. For the people who are going to leave, they're going to leave. For everyone else who's staying at their church, do everything you can to be an encouragement right now. Do everything you can to tune in. Do everything you can to communicate and give feedback. Do everything you can to ensure that you're giving on a normal, consistent basis, giving what you can. If you can, give more. If you can't, give at least what you usually give. Because this has got to be a tough time to be a pastor. I cannot imagine being a pastor in a large church right now. I can't be. I'm the pastor of a small church in the middle of nowhere. And so for things, we've moved online, but things pretty much kind of just, hopefully everything's kind of continuing as is. I think we've seen some drop maybe in the amount of people tuning in on a Wednesday night or a Sunday night. I don't think it's been too significant. it doesn't take a lot for you to notice it when it's a small church. But we've also seen an increase of people listening from other places. Now, hopefully those aren't people leaving their churches. Some of them have said their churches are not, they were only streaming once. They're streaming one time on Sunday, where my church is streaming 3 times on Sunday and once on Wednesday. So that's 4 times a week, not even counting all the other streaming that we're doing. So some of them are tuning in because their church is not streaming. Well, that's on their church. If their church is not going to stream, then I don't know what to tell you. If in the middle of a pandemic, your idea is we'll stream once a Sunday, well, there's a good chance your people who are really committed are going to look for more teaching and they're going to look elsewhere. And that's on you. All right. That's on you. But all I'm saying, if you are staying with your church, do everything you can to be encouraging. Do everything you can to encourage. If you don't typically attend church, but you're attending church virtually or online, do it then, and that's the church you're kind of getting fed from, then do everything you can do to support that. Because right now, this is a difficult time for churches. And I think it's going to get worse. I could be wrong. The way the pandemic is going, and if we get quote unquote, the second wave, I don't know if the first wave is ever going to end. I mean, September, October, November, December, I don't know what it's going to look like. But I know it's going to need some people who are committed to keeping the church going. And I think we're going to have to follow these trends. Churches are going to have to pay attention to these trends to see what it's going to look like, because I just think the church is going to look radically different in 2021. I think we may be seeing a major turn, and I don't know if it's going to be good. I don't know if it's going to be bad. You could view this as a positive. I guess you could view it this way. I'll throw this out there and I'll end with this. If people are just dropping out, hey, they're not moving to another church. They're just not listening to church. They're just done. And there's a chance that they're not coming back. Could you say possibly COVID-19 moving churches to an online situation and then half of the people just drop out? Is that a possibility? It's a purifying of the church? I mean, if people are just going to drop out because they have to listen to it at home and they're just done, I mean, that their commitment was pretty, I mean, it didn't take a lot to stop their commitment. Could this be a purifying of the church? Could this be a situation where we see the end of the mega church model, where the mega church model where people meet in the thousands in person, and that model is gone? I mean, there's a lot of trends we have to figure out, but I just wanted to throw a lot of these ideas out there and just throw it out there, and you can tell me what you think. You can email me at newsif@yahoo.com, newsif@yahoo.com. Man, there's a lot there to unpack, a lot there to consider. And trust me, there's going to be more studies. There's going to be more statistics that'll be coming over the next 6 months. There's lots of groups right now trying to figure out, because look, there's a lot of churches who want to know what's going on. They want to know what these trends are, because they've got to make major decisions of what to do. And I'm telling you, some churches that decide to stay open, right? Half of the congregation is going to get mad that you decided to stay open. Those who close, half of the congregation is going to get mad that you decided to close. I think we're going to see church splits. Now, I could be wrong, but I think we're going to see major church splits, or we're just going to see half of the people just go somewhere else. Now, this is, I tried to state from the beginning that these were the things we needed to watch. We're going to watch how society changes, how government changes, how the economy changes, and we need to watch how the church is going to be changed by this. And I think we're starting to get that indication. All right, thanks for tuning in. newsif@yahoo.com, newsif@yahoo.com. We'll continue to watch this and talk about this in future episodes. God bless.